Good morning, guys. How you doing? I'm doing good. It's a sunny morning, like real sunny, like sun be hitting right now. But it's like kind of chilly out at the same time. And that's awesome. Love that weather. I wanted to share some production technique stuff that I did on Joyboy. The production on that album that I just put out, it's my best for sure. It's like I'm learning a lot, growing a lot. I think it definitely could have benefited from being like professionally mastered as opposed to the way I did things. But I'll just go through a couple tidbits of like production techniques and stuff that I used to make the album sound really good. Stuff that I've learned really recently. Like in the making of this album, there's a lot of new things that really elevated it just within this past like couple months. So first huge thing is instead of mastering with there's kind of like two big things I learned with mastering, like, which it's not real mastering. I'm not a mastering engineer. I didn't hire a mastering engineer, but I had to get it loud, had to get it like pushed forward. So what I did was basically the first big thing is I run all of my tracks when they're done, when I have my sort of pseudo mastering chain or whatever. Then after that I send it to BandLab Mastering. It's one of those online mastering tools. So I'm kind of like double mastering the song. It sounds alike a lot, but it's really hard to get songs sounding loud. And I just tried it out. I was like, what does this sound like? And it sounds really good. So I used BandLab Mastering. I used the fourth setting, the analog distortion setting or whatever it's called, or a tape saturation, something similar to that, something in that world. So that was the first thing. And then with my actual mastering chain to get the song sounding loud, first of all, getting the levels as good as I can. I think I could have gotten them better, like listening to some of the songs, especially like Never Ending Chrome Montage and Destructo Lung. Like those two songs, the levels are kind of like, I'm like, oh, I could have made things a little more even. But so the mastering chain, what I did was basically first I did clipping. So instead of limiting, basically how it works is like you have the whole wave or whatever. Think of this as like the quietest sounds, the stuff that's happening down here, like maybe guitars and reverbs and all that good stuff. And then the top is the peaks, which is usually going to be the drums. So you have the top going like this, the bottom is kind of, and the middle staying sort of the same. But whenever you're limiting, you're bringing down those peaks. So say you have a peak here, but when you bring down this peak, you're also bringing all of this down with it. So what you're actually doing is making a lot of the song quieter because this is going like this as opposed to staying flat. So that's kind of the problem with limiting as like a mastering tool. And so what you can do instead is clipping, which is like a cardinal. I remember in music school that was like a cardinal sins, and I never wanted to mess with it. And then I learned actually like in metal music, it's a really great technique. So what you basically do is instead of lowering the whole song like this, it's just chopping off the tops of the drum hits and stuff. That was a technique I was applying a lot. I just use it to shave off like maybe like the transient, like highest transients, and then I did use limiting, because limiting still worked great. So I did use limiting as well. So I would clip and then limit, and then I think I also had an EQ, which on every song was doing, for the most part, every song was doing a dip around like 300 or so, and then like a little bump up, usually around like 1K, like if I'm remembering correctly off the top of my head, to get sort of that brightness of like the vocals and guitars a little more in the front, and then kind of get rid of some of that mud. And so that was my mastering stuff. I think that was pretty much it that I did. And when it comes to like other production techniques, like getting into the actual meat of it, the guitars, every song, the guitars are actually on 4 tracks, even though I only recorded 2 sides, unless there's like other guitars. But like the main guitars, I would record one guitar playing the riff or whatever on one pickup, then I would switch pickups, play the guitar, same riff or whatever, and then I would have those 2 tracks and I would put them on 1, 2, 1, 2 tracks, and these 2 ones would be distorted and more for like the tone sound, and then these 2 would be clean tracks for transients and like warmth or like body, I guess maybe you could say. And then I would blend those tones together, and usually the distorted tone was much louder, but I find that whenever I use just my distorted tracks, the transients get lost, and I really want that that pick attack, and it really sounded amazing to blend the distorted tracks with the clean tracks, and you can't even really tell. I think on I Am Free is the only one where like I personally am like, oh, I can totally tell the clean track is there, but maybe it's just because I was mixing it myself, and yeah, so that was amazing. And then on top of that, I have all the guitar tracks in a summing track, and on the summing track this amazing plugin. I use Waves for most of my plugins, so for my guitars I was using their guitar amp, the Waves Cab I think is what it's called. And then for the on the summing track for the guitars, I use the Waves, it's like a guitar channel. I'm trying to remember the actual name of it. I can't remember. I think it might just be called Waves Guitars, straight up. And it's amazing. It just makes it's like a little mastering chain for your guitars, and it's just kind of automatic and really intuitive. If you record guitars, I highly recommend checking out the Waves Guitars or Guitar Channel or whatever it's called, because it's insane. It comes with reverb, delay, widening. It does like it'll widen your guitars. It'll do distortion, of course, a little bit of EQ, like high end, low end. And it's all designed for guitar. And you can turn all of them off. You can turn them on. You can change the levels. There's different settings for each one. I try to not do too much, but it's just that secret sauce that makes the guitars go from like being there to being like a part of the song. So absolutely loved adding that. The big thing I want to share as well is for the snare track on all of my drums. I sent the snare to another track which had a guitar amplifier on it, like a digital one, and just very quietly, and it added this like body to the snare. So when it's like like you get the roundness and then like the low end, like I think there's a big gap in the middle of the snare sound in a lot of the Logic preset drums, and just boosting the middle doesn't sound good. Like you get all this weird bristly stuff coming up. So what I did was I sent it to this snare track and had that just up like just a little bit to give the extra push, and it gives the snare just this little, and it's a very unique sound too. It's like tons of personality to it. So that was really, really fun to introduce, was the snare plus the guitar amplifier to create just a large snare sound. And let me know what you think of that, because it sounds unique for sure. I got the idea from this random YouTube tutorial. Some guy was experimenting with some stuff, and he did that, and he was like, sounds cool. I'm not going to do it, but maybe you do. And I'm like, I'll try it. And then I did, and it sounded good. So yeah, that's pretty much it on my like mixing stuff. I kind of rambled on about a lot of the mixing. If you have any particular questions about like moments in any song, like how did I do that or anything like that, or any qualms, you're like, dude, like this stuck out a lot on this song, let me know, because I'm always trying to grow and learn and find like new techniques and evolve my techniques. And I will say off the bat, like I'm aware of some of the songs being like not having the levels kind of weird. I feel like the levels are kind of everything in mixing as I'm coming to learn, and I'm still learning it, so it's cool. But yeah, have a good rest of your day. I gotta go back to work. I kind of extended my 10-minute break to be a little longer, but don't tell my boss. Anyways, have a good one, guys. See you next time.